Hey everyone, I've been lurking here for a while, reading all your stories, never thinking I'd end up posting one of my own. But here I am, needing to get this off my chest. Last weekend, everything I thought I knew about my life came crashing down. So, it was a typical Saturday, and my wife, Sarah, and I decided to spend the afternoon at the mall. We don't have kids, so we often spend our weekends shopping, eating out, and just enjoying each other's company. Or so I thought. Sarah has always had a bit of an obsession with designer brands, and Gucci is her favorite. We walked into the Gucci store, and she immediately started browsing through the new arrivals. I wasn't really interested, so I wandered over to the jackets section, thinking about picking one up for the upcoming fall season. After about 15 minutes, Sarah told me she needed to use the restroom. "I'll be right back," she said, flashing me a quick smile before heading towards the back of the store where the restrooms were located. I didn't think much of it at the time and continued to browse, lost in my thoughts about which jacket would suit me best. But as the minutes ticked by, I started to feel uneasy. Sarah had been gone for too long. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe there was a line, maybe she got distracted by something on her way back, but something in my gut told me that something was off. I decided to go check on her. I walked towards the restrooms at the back of the store, my heart pounding a little harder with each step. As I got closer, I noticed a security guard standing nearby. He had a smug look on his face, and I felt a chill run down my spine. Just then, the restroom door opened, and Sarah stumbled out. Her hair was a mess, strands sticking out in all directions, and her face was flushed. She looked like she had just been through something intense. My eyes widened in shock and confusion. Behind her, the security guard followed, and to my absolute horror, he was holding her by the hair. He had a firm grip, almost dragging her out. Sarah glanced at me, her eyes filled with a mix of defiance and guilt, and then looked away quickly. "What the hell is going on?" I shouted, my voice echoing through the store. I felt a surge of anger and adrenaline. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My mind raced with 1,000 thoughts, none of them making any sense. Without thinking, I lunged at the guard, fists clenched, ready to do whatever it took to get him away from Sarah. But he was quicker than I expected. With a swift, practiced move, he whipped out a baton and struck me. Pain exploded in my side, and I crumpled to the floor, gasping for breath. I lay there, stunned, as the guard pulled Sarah closer and led her out of the store. My vision blurred, and I struggled to get up, but my body wouldn't cooperate. I watched helplessly as they disappeared through the mall entrance, my mind struggling to process what had just happened. As I lay on the cold tile floor, pain radiating through my body, the reality of the situation began to sink in. The physical pain was nothing compared to the emotional betrayal I felt. Sarah, the woman I loved and trusted, had just left with another man right in front of me, and not just any man, a security guard in the middle of a mall. I knew I had to get up, to follow them, to confront them, but at that moment, all I could do was lie there, overwhelmed by the shock and the pain, trying to understand how my life had just been turned upside down in the span of a few minutes. After what felt like an eternity, I managed to drag myself up off the floor. My side ached from the baton strike, but the emotional pain was far worse. I stumbled out of the Gucci store, my mind a whirlpool of anger, confusion, and betrayal. I made my way through the mall, pushing past the weekend shoppers who seemed blissfully unaware of the chaos that had just unfolded. I had to find Sarah. I had to get answers. I reached the entrance of the mall and scanned the parking lot, hoping to catch a glimpse of them. Then I saw it, a dark sedan parked near the edge of the lot, its windows slightly fogged up. I couldn't believe my eyes. There they were, Sarah and the guard, in his car. My heart sank as I saw them continuing what they had started in the restroom. The sight of them together, so blatantly disrespecting everything we had, made my blood boil. I felt a surge of adrenaline and anger, and for a moment I considered running over there and pulling her out of the car. But something held me back. Maybe it was the throbbing pain in my side, or maybe it was the realization that this situation was already out of control. I stood there watching, feeling helpless and humiliated. I fumbled for my phone, my hands shaking with rage and disbelief. I dialed the mall security number, hoping they could help. After a few rings, a bored-sounding operator picked up. "Yes, hello, I need security at the parking lot by the east entrance. There's an emergency," I stammered, my voice cracking with emotion. The operator asked for more details, and I quickly explained the situation. She assured me that someone would be there soon. I hung up and leaned against a nearby car, trying to catch my breath and make sense of the whirlwind of emotions crashing over me. Minutes later, a couple of mall security guards arrived. I pointed them towards the dark sedan, explaining what had happened. They approached the car cautiously, tapping on the window. The guard inside looked up, annoyance flashing across his face. He opened the door and stepped out, leaving Sarah behind. "Sir, we need you to step away from the vehicle," one of the security guards said firmly. The guard who had been with Sarah glared at me. "What's your problem, man?" He spat, clearly irritated by the interruption. "My problem?" I shouted back, barely able to contain my anger. "You're the problem. You assaulted me and then dragged my wife out here." The security guards stepped between us, preventing the situation from escalating further. "We need to resolve this calmly," one of them said. "Sir, please step away from the vehicle." The guard reluctantly complied, and Sarah finally got out of the car. She looked disheveled and unrepentant, her eyes flashing with anger. "What the hell are you doing causing a scene like this?" she snapped at me. "Causing a scene? Are you kidding me, Sarah? You were in the restroom with this guy and now you're out here in his car." I shot back, my voice trembling with hurt and fury. "You're overreacting. It's not what it looks like," she lied, her voice dripping with disdain. "We were just talking." I couldn't believe the words coming out of her mouth. "Talking? That's what you call this?" The security guards tried to keep things under control, but the tension was palpable. "Sir, ma'am, we need to de-escalate this situation," one of them said, trying to calm us down. But before anything could be resolved, the guard who had been with Sarah grabbed her hand. "Come on, let's get out of here," he said, pulling her towards another exit. The security guards tried to stop them, but the guard flashed a badge and muttered something about an internal mall matter. They hesitated just long enough for him to pull Sarah away, leaving me standing there, shattered and alone in the parking lot. I watched in disbelief as the guard and Sarah disappeared from sight, leaving me standing in the parking lot, feeling utterly defeated. The security guards looked at me with pity, but there was nothing they could do. I was left to process the whirlwind of emotions alone. My mind raced as I tried to piece together what had just happened. How had it come to this? Sarah had always been a bit of a drama queen, but I never thought she would go this far. I needed answers, and I needed them now. I stumbled back to my car, still in shock, and got in. I sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel tightly, trying to steady my breathing. I couldn't just let them get away with this. I started the car and pulled out of the parking lot, determined to find them. As I drove aimlessly through the city, my thoughts kept returning to Sarah's betrayal. The image of her with that guard, her hair disheveled and her face flushed, was burned into my mind. I couldn't understand how she could do this to me, to us. I drove past the familiar streets, the places where Sarah and I had built our life together. Each landmark felt like a painful reminder of the trust she had shattered. I needed to find them, but I had no idea where they could have gone. After what felt like hours of driving around with no destination in mind, I spotted a dark sedan parked in a secluded spot by a nearby park. My heart pounded as I pulled over, hoping against hope that it was them. Sure enough, there they were, locked in another heated embrace in the back seat of the car. Anger and betrayal surged through me as I watched them. How could she do this to me? How could she be so reckless and cruel? I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself before stepping out of the car. I couldn't let my emotions get the better of me again. As much as I wanted to drag her out of that car and demand answers, I knew I needed to handle this carefully. I approached the car cautiously, my fists clenched at my sides. I rapped on the window, startling them. Sarah looked up, her eyes widening in surprise and anger. "What the hell are you doing here?" she shouted, fumbling to cover herself. "We need to talk," I said, my voice trembling with a mix of rage and hurt. Get out of the car! The guard glared at me, clearly annoyed. You're not making this any easier, man, he said, opening the door and stepping out. He towered over me, but I refused to back down. Sarah got out of the car as well, her face a mask of fury. You're being ridiculous, she spat. This has nothing to do with you. Nothing to do with me? I shouted, incredulous. You're my wife, Sarah. How can you say that? She rolled her eyes, crossing her arms defensively. You never understand, do you? You're always so focused on yourself. Maybe if you paid more attention to me, this wouldn't have happened. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. So this is my fault now? I asked, my voice breaking. You're the one cheating and you're blaming me? The guard stepped closer, trying to assert his dominance. Look, this isn't the place for this, he said. You need to back off. I squared my shoulders, refusing to be intimidated. No, you need to back off. This is between me and my wife. Sarah scoffed, shaking her head. You're pathetic, she said. Just leave us alone. Before I could respond, the guard grabbed Sarah's hand and pulled her back towards the car. Come on, let's go, he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. I watched helplessly as they got back into the car and drove off, leaving me standing there, alone and broken. The reality of the situation crashed down on me, and I realized that this was far from over. I needed to figure out what to do next, but for now, all I could do was watch them disappear into the distance, taking my shattered heart with them. The rest of that night was a blur. I drove aimlessly for hours, trying to process what had happened. Eventually, exhaustion took over, and I found myself parked outside our house, unable to summon the will to go inside. How could I face the home Sarah and I had built together, knowing what she'd done? The morning sun crept up, casting a harsh light on the reality of my situation. I finally dragged myself inside, collapsing onto the couch. My mind was still reeling, but I knew I couldn't avoid this forever. I had to confront Sarah, get some answers, and decide what to do next. Just as I was about to drift off, my phone buzzed with a message. It was from Sarah. We need to talk. The nerve of her! After everything she'd put me through, now she wanted to talk? I replied, telling her to come home. I needed to see her face to face, to understand what had driven her to such betrayal. She agreed, saying she'd be home in an hour. The wait felt interminable. I paced the living room, my mind swinging between rage and heartbreak. When I heard the front door open, I steeled myself, ready for the confrontation. Sarah walked in, looking disheveled and defiant. Her eyes were cold, her demeanor unrepentant. So, are you going to yell at me again? She asked, her tone dripping with sarcasm. I just want to understand, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. How could you do this? Why him? Why now? She rolled her eyes as if my questions were a nuisance. You never pay attention to me, she snapped. You're always working, always distracted. I needed something more. Something more? I repeated, incredulous. So you go and have sex with a security guard in a mall bathroom? That's your solution? Her expression hardened. You don't get it. He pays attention to me. He makes me feel alive. The words stung more than any physical blow. So what happens now? I asked. Are you leaving me for him? She hesitated, then shrugged. I don't know, maybe. I haven't decided yet. Decided? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You act like this is some casual choice, like picking out a new pair of shoes. You destroyed our marriage, Sarah. She sighed, exasperated. Stop being so dramatic. It's not the end of the world. People have affairs all the time. The sheer audacity of her attitude floored me. Do you even care about what you've done? About how this has affected me? She looked at me, and for a brief moment, I thought I saw a flicker of remorse, but it vanished as quickly as it came. I needed this, okay? Maybe you should look at yourself and see why I had to go elsewhere. Her words were like a dagger to my heart. I couldn't take it anymore. Get out, I said quietly. What? She asked, clearly surprised. I said get out, I repeated, louder this time. I can't do this right now. Just leave. She glared at me but didn't argue. She grabbed her bag and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I stood there, the silence of the house pressing down on me. I had no idea what to do next. My marriage was in shambles, my trust completely broken. But I knew one thing for certain. This was far from over. After Sarah stormed out, I sat in silence, trying to piece together the fragments of my shattered life. The anger and betrayal were like a constant drumbeat in my mind, and I knew I couldn't stay in the house. Every corner reminded me of her, of us, of the life we'd built, and she'd so carelessly destroyed. I decided to take a drive, needing to clear my head. As I navigated the familiar streets, memories flooded back. Our first date, the spot where I proposed, the restaurants and parks where we spent so many happy times. Each memory now felt tainted, a painful reminder of what I thought we had. Lost in thought, I nearly missed the turn for my friend Mark's place. Mark had been my best friend since college, and if anyone could help me make sense of this mess, it was him. I pulled into his driveway and sat for a moment, gathering my thoughts before knocking on his door. Mark answered, looking surprised to see me so early. "Hey man, what's up? You look like hell." I forced a weak smile. "You have no idea. Can I come in?" "Of course," he said, stepping aside to let me in. "What's going on?" We sat down in his living room, and I told him everything. The mall incident, the parking lot, the confrontation with Sarah. As I talked, the reality of it all hit me again, and I felt the tears welling up. Mark listened patiently, his expression growing more serious by the minute. "Jesus, I can't believe she did that," he said when I finished. "What the hell was she thinking?" "I don't know," I admitted, wiping my eyes. "She said I wasn't paying attention to her, that she needed something more." Mark shook his head. "That's bullshit, man. If she had a problem, she should have talked to you, not gone off with some random guy." "I know," I said, feeling the anger rise again. "But what do I do now? I can't just pretend this never happened." "You can't," Mark agreed. "You need to figure out what you want. Do you want to try to save your marriage, or is it over for you?" I thought about it, the weight of the decision pressing down on me. "I don't know if I can ever trust her again," I said finally. "But part of me wants to try, to see if there's anything left to salvage." "That's understandable," Mark said. "But you need to be careful. She hurt you once. She could do it again." We talked for a while longer, and Mark gave me some solid advice. He suggested I see a therapist, someone who could help me process my emotions and figure out the best path forward. He also offered to let me stay at his place for a few days if I needed some space. I thanked him, feeling a little more grounded. As I left, I decided to take him up on his offer. I couldn't face the emptiness of my own house, not yet. I drove back home, packed a bag, and headed back to Mark's. That evening I texted Sarah, letting her know I needed some time and space. She replied almost immediately, her tone still defensive and unrepentant. "Take all the time you need," she wrote. "Just let me know when you're ready to talk like adults." I didn't respond. I couldn't deal with her right now. Instead, I focused on taking the first steps to heal myself. I made an appointment with a therapist and started thinking about what I really wanted from my life, from my marriage, and from Sarah. The next few days were a blur of emotions. I spent a lot of time talking with Mark, trying to make sense of everything. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that Sarah's betrayal had opened my eyes to some harsh truths about our relationship. Maybe it had been crumbling for a while, and I just hadn't seen it. But even as I started to come to terms with the situation, the unexpected events kept coming. One night, Mark and I were having dinner when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I opened it, and my heart nearly stopped. It was a photo of Sarah and the security guard taken just a few hours earlier. They were in a different mall, arm in arm, looking happier than I'd seen her in months. The message that came with it was simple. "Thought you should know." I stared at the photo, a mix of anger and sadness washing over me. Whoever had sent it clearly wanted to stir the pot, and they'd succeeded. I showed it to Mark, who looked just as shocked as I felt. "Man, you need to end this," he said, his voice firm. "She's not worth the pain she's putting you through." He was right. Seeing that photo made me realize that whatever hope I had left for our marriage was gone. Sarah had made her choice, and now I had to make mine. I texted her again, telling her I was done and that I wanted a divorce. She didn't reply immediately, and I didn't expect her to. I knew it would be a messy, painful process, but it was the only way forward. As I sat there with Mark, I felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time since this nightmare began, I knew what I had to do. It wouldn't be easy, but I had friends like Mark to support me, and I was determined to rebuild my life, one step at a time. The decision to divorce Sarah brought a strange sense of calm. For days I had been living in a storm of emotions, but now I finally had some clarity. I was at Mark's place, sitting on the porch with a beer, when my phone buzzed. It was Sarah. "I can't believe you want a divorce," her message read. "We need to talk." I ignored it. There was nothing left to say. I needed to focus on moving forward. The next day, I made an appointment with a lawyer. Mark came with me for moral support. The lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Janet, listened to my story with a sympathetic ear. "You have a solid case for divorce," she said. "Given the circumstances, we can push for an at-fault divorce due to adultery. It might help you get a better settlement." I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. This was really happening. Over the next week, I started the painful process of dividing our assets and figuring out the logistics of the divorce. Sarah continued to message me, alternating between anger and pleading. One day, she'd be furious, accusing me of overreacting, and the next, she'd be begging for another chance. But I remained firm. I couldn't go back. One evening, I was at Mark's, trying to distract myself with a movie, when my phone buzzed again. It was another unknown number. With a sinking feeling, I opened the message. "Just thought you should see this," it read. Attached was a video of Sarah and the security guard, laughing and kissing in what looked like a nightclub. The timestamp showed it was from the previous night. My stomach churned with anger and disgust. Whoever was sending these wanted to hurt me, but they were only making me more resolute. I showed the video to Mark. "Who keeps sending you this stuff?" he asked, baffled. "I have no idea," I said. "But it doesn't matter. It just confirms that I'm doing the right thing." Days turned into weeks, and the divorce proceedings moved forward. Sarah's messages grew less frequent, but she did manage to make a few unexpected appearances. One day she showed up at my workplace, causing a scene in the lobby. "You can't just ignore me," she shouted, her voice echoing through the building. My co-workers stared as I tried to calmly lead her outside. "What do you want, Sarah?" I asked, exhausted. "I want to fix this," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I know I messed up, but we can work through this." I shook my head. "It's too late. You made your choice." She glared at me, her expression shifting from desperation to anger. "You're just throwing everything away? For what?" "For my own sanity," I replied. "I can't keep living like this." She left in a huff, and I returned to my desk, my colleagues giving me sympathetic looks. It was humiliating, but it also steeled my resolve. I knew I was making the right decision. A few days later, I got a call from Janet. "We've hit a snag," she said. "Sarah is contesting the divorce. She claims she was coerced into the affair." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Coerced? Are you kidding me?" "I know it's a stretch," Janet said, "but we'll have to address it in court." The court date loomed over me like a dark cloud. When the day finally came, I walked into the courtroom feeling a mix of nerves and determination. Sarah was already there, looking composed and defiant. Her lawyer was a slick, confident guy who seemed ready to tear me apart. The proceedings were a blur of accusations and counter-arguments. Sarah's lawyer painted her as the victim, claiming the security guard had manipulated her. I couldn't believe the lies coming out of her mouth. When it was my turn to speak, I told the truth about what had happened, about how I found them together in the restroom and the parking lot. Janet presented the video evidence and the messages I'd received. The judge listened, her expression unreadable. After what felt like an eternity, she finally gave her ruling. "The evidence supports the petitioner's claim of adultery," she said. "The divorce is granted on those grounds. As for the division of assets..." The settlement was fair, but it was clear that Sarah wasn't getting what she wanted. She glared at me as we left the courtroom, her eyes full of hatred. "This isn't over," she hissed. I didn't respond. I was done with her drama. I walked out of the courthouse, feeling a strange mix of relief and sadness. The chapter of my life with Sarah was finally over, but a new one was beginning. That evening, back at Mark's place, we toasted to new beginnings. "Here's to moving on," Mark said, clinking his bottle against mine. "To moving on," I echoed, feeling a glimmer of hope for the first time in weeks. But as I lay in bed that night, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number, another message. "You thought it was over? Think again." Attached was a photo of Sarah and the security guard, this time in a hotel room, looking far too comfortable. I stared at the screen, my heart sinking. The unexpected twists and betrayals weren't over yet. But I knew one thing for sure. I was stronger now. Whatever came next, I'd face it head on. The message from the unknown number hit me hard. Just when I thought I was starting to find my footing, another blow landed. The photo of Sarah and the security guard in the hotel room was a stark reminder that this nightmare was far from over. I showed the message to Mark, who was just as baffled as I was. "This is getting ridiculous," he said. "Whoever's sending these is trying to mess with you." "Yeah, but why?" I wondered aloud. "What do they gain from this?" Mark shrugged. "Maybe it's someone who wants to see you suffer, or maybe it's someone trying to help you see the truth about Sarah." I couldn't make sense of it. The constant barrage of photos and videos was tearing at my sanity. But there was one thing I could do. I needed to find out who was behind these messages. I decided to hire a private investigator, hoping they could uncover the sender's identity and put an end to this torment. The next morning, I contacted a PI named Rachel. She came highly recommended, known for her discretion and tenacity. I met her at a small cafe, where I explained the situation and showed her the messages. "This is definitely odd," Rachel said, scrolling through the photos and texts. "But I'll get to the bottom of it. I'll start with tracking the number. In the meantime, keep me updated if you receive anything else." With Rachel on the case, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I could get some answers and start to move forward. A few days later, I received another message. This time, it was a video of Sarah and the guard arguing in what looked like a hotel lobby. Their voices were muffled, but the tension was palpable. The guard looked furious, and Sarah seemed on the verge of tears. I forwarded the video to Rachel immediately. She responded quickly, telling me she was closing in on the sender. Her message gave me a bit of solace, though the constant reminders of Sarah's betrayal were taking their toll. Meanwhile, Sarah continued her erratic behavior. She showed up at Mark's place again, demanding to talk. "We need to sort this out," she insisted, her voice a mix of desperation and anger. "I have nothing to say to you," I replied coldly. "The divorce is happening, and that's final." "You're making a mistake," she spat. "You're going to regret this." I watched her storm off, feeling a mix of sadness and relief. I knew I was making the right choice, but it didn't make the process any easier. That evening, Rachel called with some news. "I've traced the messages," she said. "They're coming from a disposable phone, but I managed to get some footage from the hotel security where that last video was taken." She sent me the footage, and my heart nearly stopped. The person in the lobby recording the argument between Sarah and the guard was none other than the guard's ex-girlfriend, Maria. She had a look of triumph on her face as she recorded the scene, clearly relishing in their misery. "So, Maria is behind this?" I asked, incredulous. "It appears so," Rachel confirmed. "She seems to have a vendetta against both Sarah and the guard. It's likely she's been sending you these messages to stir the pot." I sat back, processing this new information. Maria's motive was clear. She wanted to cause chaos for Sarah and her new lover, and I was collateral damage. "Thanks, Rachel," I said. "At least now I know who's behind this." With Maria's identity revealed, I felt a strange sense of closure. I still had a long road ahead, but knowing the source of the torment gave me some peace. I decided to confront Maria, to put an end to her interference once and for all. I arranged to meet her at a neutral location, a cafe in town. When she arrived, she looked surprised to see me but quickly masked it with a smug smile. "So, you finally figured it out," she said, sitting across from me. "Yeah, I did," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Why are you doing this, Maria? What do you gain from it?" She leaned back, her smile widening. "I wanted them to suffer, just like they made me suffer. And seeing you in pain was just a bonus." Her words stung, but I refused to let her see my anger. "Well, it's over now. I know the truth, and I'm moving on. You won't get to me anymore." Maria's smile faltered for a moment, then returned. "We'll see about that." I left the cafe feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. Maria's games were exposed, and I was more determined than ever to move forward with my life. The divorce was still a painful process, but I was starting to see a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. As the days passed, I focused on rebuilding my life. I threw myself into work, reconnected with friends, and even started seeing a therapist to help process the trauma. Slowly but surely, I began to find my footing again. Sarah's presence in my life grew smaller and smaller. She continued to reach out occasionally, but I ignored her messages, knowing that engaging with her would only drag me back into the darkness. One day, as I was leaving the therapist's office, I received another message from an unknown number. My heart sank, fearing it was Maria again, but when I opened it, I was surprised to see it was from Rachel. "I found something else you might want to know," her message read. Attached was a document detailing the guard's shady past, multiple incidents of misconduct, and even a few allegations of assault. It seemed Sarah's new lover was more dangerous than I had realized. I forwarded the document to my lawyer, hoping it would help in the divorce proceedings. With this new information, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was done being a victim. It was time to take control of my life and ensure that Sarah faced the consequences of her actions. As I drove home, I realized that despite the pain and betrayal, I was stronger than I had ever been. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I knew I could handle whatever came my way. For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of hope and determination. This was just the beginning of my new life. The revelation about the security guard's shady past added another layer to the mess Sarah had dragged me into. Knowing what I knew now, I felt a responsibility to confront Sarah one last time, not to reconcile, but to make sure she understood the gravity of her choices. The man she was involved with wasn't just a fling. He was potentially dangerous. I called Sarah and told her we needed to talk. To my surprise, she agreed without much resistance. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop we used to frequent, a neutral place where emotions might be kept in check. When I arrived, she was already there, looking surprisingly composed. She glanced up as I approached, a mix of curiosity and wariness in her eyes. "So what's this about?" she asked, her tone clipped. "I need you to understand something," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "The man you're involved with, the security guard, he's not who you think he is." She rolled her eyes, clearly unimpressed. "Oh, here we go. More accusations." I handed her the document Rachel had sent me. "Just read this." She took it reluctantly, scanning the pages. As she read, her expression shifted from annoyance to confusion, then to shock. "What is this? Where did you get this?" "It's a record of his past," I explained. "Multiple incidents of misconduct, allegations of assault. He's dangerous, Sarah." She looked up at me, her eyes wide. "Why are you showing me this? What do you expect me to do?" "I expect you to see the truth," I said firmly. "I'm not trying to get back together with you, Sarah. I'm trying to warn you. You're making a mistake and it could cost you dearly." She was silent for a long moment, staring at the document. Finally, she shook her head. "This doesn't change anything. I'm with him because you pushed me away. You never paid attention to me. You never cared." Her words stung, but I refused to let her deflect. "You can blame me all you want, but this is about more than just our marriage. This is about your safety. I don't want to see you get hurt." She stood up abruptly, stuffing the document into her bag. "I don't need your concern, and I don't need your warnings. Stay out of my life." She stormed out of the coffee shop, leaving me sitting there, feeling a mix of frustration and sadness. I had done what I could. The rest was up to her. Over the next few days, I threw myself back into my work and therapy, trying to focus on healing and moving forward. Sarah's reaction had been predictable, but it still hurt to see her so determined to self-destruct. Then one evening, as I was preparing dinner at Mark's place, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Hesitantly, I answered. "Hello? Is this John?" A woman's voice asked. "Yes, who's this?" "This is Maria," she said, her voice tense. "We need to talk." My heart raced. Why was Maria calling me? "What do you want?" "I've been thinking about what you said," she continued. "About Sarah and that guard. You were right. He's dangerous, and she's in over her head. I didn't believe it at first, but now I don't know what to do." "Where are you?" I asked, my concern growing. "I'm at the old factory downtown," she said, her voice shaking. "I followed them here. They're inside." I grabbed my keys, telling Mark where I was going. "Stay there," I told Maria. "I'm on my way." I drove as fast as I could, my mind racing. The old factory was a dilapidated building, long abandoned, a perfect place for shady dealings. When I arrived, I found Maria waiting outside, looking terrified. "They've been in there for a while," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I heard yelling." I nodded, my heart pounding. "Stay here. I'm going in." The factory was dark and eerie, the air thick with dust and decay. I moved cautiously, trying to make as little noise as possible. As I approached the back of the building, I heard voices. Sarah's and the guards. They were arguing. "You lied to me!" Sarah was shouting. "You said you'd leave her!" "And you said you'd leave him," the guard retorted. "Looks like we're both liars." I edged closer, peering around a corner. They were standing in a dimly lit room, their faces contorted with anger. Sarah looked scared, and the guard was towering over her, his expression menacing. "You don't get to control me," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "I'm done with this." He grabbed her arm, pulling her close. "You're not going anywhere." I couldn't stand by any longer. "Let her go," I shouted, stepping into the room. The guard spun around, his eyes narrowing. Well, look who decided to play hero." Sarah's eyes widened in shock. "John, what are you doing here?" "Getting you out of this mess," I said, keeping my eyes on the guard. He laughed, a cold, chilling sound. "You think you can just walk in here and take her? You've got some nerve." I took a step forward, my heart pounding. "Let her go and we'll leave. No one has to get hurt." He tightened his grip on Sarah's arm. "And if I don't? Then you'll have to go through me," I said, my voice steady despite the fear coursing through me. The guard sized me up, then smirked. "Fine, take her. She's not worth the trouble." He shoved Sarah towards me and she stumbled into my arms. I pulled her close, backing away slowly, never taking my eyes off the guard. "Let's go," I whispered to Sarah, guiding her towards the exit. We made it outside, where Maria was waiting, her eyes wide with relief. "Is she okay?" "I'm fine," Sarah said, her voice shaky. "I just need to get out of here." We drove back in silence, the weight of the night's events pressing down on us. When we finally arrived at Mark's place, I turned to Sarah. "You need to stay away from him," I said firmly. "He's dangerous, and you deserve better." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry, John. I've made such a mess of everything." "We'll figure it out," I said, feeling a flicker of hope. "But first, you need to take care of yourself." As Sarah settled into Mark's guest room, I realized that the journey to healing was far from over. But for the first time, I felt like we were moving in the right direction. There would be more challenges ahead, but I was ready to face them, one step at a time. The next morning felt surreal. Sarah was in the guest room, still asleep, and I was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, trying to process everything that had happened. Mark joined me, a look of concern etched on his face. "You okay?" he asked, sitting down across from me. I shrugged, taking a sip of my coffee. "Honestly, I don't know. Everything is such a mess." Mark nodded. "It'll take time to sort through all this, But you did the right thing, getting her out of there. Yeah, I said, staring into my cup. I just hope she realizes how dangerous that guy is. As if on cue, Sarah walked into the kitchen, looking exhausted and a bit lost. She glanced at us, then sat down next to me, her eyes downcast. Morning, she said quietly. Morning, Mark and I replied in unison. Sarah fiddled with her hands, her expression troubled. John, I don't know what to say. I'm sorry for everything. I was so stupid. I sighed, reaching out to place a hand on hers. We've all made mistakes, Sarah. The important thing now is to move forward and make better choices. She looked up, tears in her eyes. Do you think we can ever fix this? I took a deep breath. I don't know. But I think the first step is getting you away from that guy and focusing on your own healing. We can't even begin to talk about us until you're safe and stable. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I understand. Thank you for coming to get me last night. I was so scared. Mark cleared his throat, standing up. I'm going to give you two some space. If you need anything, just holler. As he left the room, Sarah and I sat in silence for a moment. Finally, she spoke again. I think I should stay with my sister for a while. I need time to clear my head and figure things out. I nodded. That sounds like a good idea. I can help you pack and drive you over there. Thank you, she said softly. I know I don't deserve your kindness after everything I've done. It's not about deserving, I said gently. It's about doing what's right. We spent the morning packing her things. It was strange, going through our home and separating her belongings from mine. Each item felt like a piece of our history, now tainted by the recent past. But it was necessary. Once we had everything packed, we loaded her bags into the car. The drive to her sister's was quiet, the tension thick in the air. When we arrived, her sister Emily greeted us with a mix of relief and worry. Sarah, I'm so glad you're here, Emily said, hugging her tightly. We'll get through this together. I helped carry the bags inside, then turned to Sarah. If you need anything, just call, and please, stay away from that guy. She nodded, tears welling up again. I will. Thank you, John. As I drove away, I felt a strange mix of emotions, sadness, relief, and a glimmer of hope. Sarah was safe, and now we could both start to heal. Back at Mark's place, I threw myself into work and therapy, focusing on rebuilding my life. I started going to the gym regularly, trying to channel my anger and frustration into something positive. It wasn't easy, but each day felt like a small step forward. A few weeks later, I got a call from Rachel, the private investigator. Hey, John, I thought you'd want to know. The guard was arrested last night. He got into a fight at a bar, and the police found drugs on him. I felt a surge of relief. That's good news. Maybe now Sarah can truly move on. Yeah, Rachel agreed. I'll keep you updated if anything else comes up. With the guard out of the picture, I hoped Sarah could finally start to heal. We stayed in touch, talking occasionally as she worked through her own issues. It was clear she was struggling, but she was also making progress. One evening, I received an unexpected text from her. Can we meet? I have something I need to say. Curious and a bit apprehensive, I agreed. We met at a quiet park, a place we used to visit often. Sarah looked better than she had in weeks, more composed, more like her old self. Thank you for meeting me, she said, sitting down on a bench. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I realized I needed to tell you something. I sat down next to her, waiting. I know I hurt you deeply, she began, her voice steady, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I want you to know that I'm truly sorry. I was lost and looking for something that was missing inside me. It wasn't your fault. I nodded, appreciating her honesty. Thank you, Sarah. That means a lot. I've been working on forgiving you, not for your sake, but for mine. I need to let go of the anger and move forward. She smiled, a sad but genuine smile. I hope you can find happiness again, John. You deserve it. You too, I said. I hope you find peace and healing. We sat there for a while, talking about our plans for the future. It was bittersweet, acknowledging the end of our relationship while also wishing each other well. As I drove home that night, I felt a sense of closure. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I was no longer weighed down by the past. I was ready to embrace the future, whatever it might hold. After meeting Sarah in the park, I felt a sense of closure that had been eluding me. The weight of our broken relationship no longer hung over my head like a dark cloud. I was finally ready to focus on myself and the future. Back at Mark's place, I sat down with him to talk about what was next. "I think it's time for me to get my own place," I said. "I appreciate everything you've done for me, but I need to start over on my own." Mark nodded, understanding. "I get it, man. You need to rebuild. But remember, you've got friends who have your back. Don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything." I spent the next few weeks apartment hunting, finally settling on a small but cozy place not too far from work. Moving in felt like a fresh start. I decorated the place simply, focusing on creating a peaceful environment where I could heal and grow. One day as I was unpacking, I found a box of old photos. Among them were pictures of Sarah and me during happier times. Instead of feeling a pang of sadness, I felt a sense of gratitude for the good memories we had shared. I decided to keep a few photos as a reminder of the lessons learned and the growth that came from the pain. As the days turned into weeks, I threw myself into new routines. I started attending a local support group for people going through similar experiences. Hearing others' stories helped me feel less alone, and sharing my own story was cathartic. I also continued with therapy, which provided a safe space to explore my feelings and work through my emotions. One evening, I decided to go for a run in the park near my new apartment. It was a beautiful day, and the fresh air felt invigorating. As I ran, I noticed a woman struggling to set up a picnic blanket with a toddler in tow. She seemed familiar, but I couldn't quite place her. I slowed down, feeling a strange sense of déjà vu. The woman looked up and smiled, recognizing me. "John, right?" It took a moment, but then I remembered. "Maria?" I asked, surprised. She nodded, her smile warm. "Yeah, it's me. Small world, huh?" We chatted for a bit, and I learned that Maria had also moved on from the tumultuous events involving Sarah and the security guard. She was now focused on raising her son and building a new life. There was a calmness about her that hadn't been there before. "I'm really sorry for everything that happened," she said, looking genuinely remorseful. "I was so caught up in my own pain that I didn't think about how it was affecting you." "It's okay," I said. "We've all made mistakes. What matters is that we learn from them and move forward." We exchanged numbers, agreeing to stay in touch. Over the next few weeks, we met up occasionally for coffee or a run in the park. It was nice to have someone who understood the journey I was on, and we slowly became friends. As time went on, I noticed a shift in myself. The anger and sadness that had once consumed me were fading, replaced by a sense of peace and acceptance. I started to enjoy life again, exploring new hobbies, meeting new people, and rediscovering my passions. One evening, while having dinner with Mark, he looked at me and smiled. "You seem different," he said, in a good way. "I feel different," I admitted. "For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm moving in the right direction." As the months passed, Sarah and I continued to maintain a cordial distance. She reached out occasionally to update me on her progress, and I did the same. It was clear that we were both healing, albeit on separate paths. One day, I received a message from her. "I just wanted to say thank you for everything. I'm doing better now, and I hope you are too." I replied, "I'm glad to hear that, Sarah. I wish you all the best." It was a simple exchange, but it felt significant. It marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. A year after the whole ordeal began, I found myself standing at the edge of a new beginning. I had a new apartment, new friends, and a new outlook on life. The past was a part of me, but it no longer defined me. I was ready to embrace whatever the future held. And as I stood there, looking out at the horizon, I felt a sense of hope and excitement. Life had thrown me some unexpected twists, but I had come out stronger on the other side. Whatever came next, I was ready. Time moved on, and I continued to rebuild my life. The emotional wounds from Sarah's betrayal had healed into scars, reminders of the past but no longer sources of pain. I felt more at peace than I had in a long time. One weekend, I decided to take a trip to a nearby town for a change of scenery. It was a quaint, picturesque place known for its hiking trails and scenic views. As I drove through the winding roads, I felt a sense of freedom and excitement. This trip was a chance to reconnect with myself and explore new horizons. After checking into a cozy bed and breakfast, I set out to explore the town. The streets were lined with charming shops and cafes, and the locals were friendly and welcoming. I spent the afternoon wandering around, enjoying the fresh air and the sense of adventure. The next morning, I decided to tackle one of the town's famous hiking trails. The trail was challenging but rewarding, offering breathtaking views of the surrounding mountains and valleys. As I hiked, I felt a sense of accomplishment and a renewed connection with nature. It was a reminder of the beauty and resilience of life. At one of the scenic overlooks, I met a group of hikers taking a break. We struck up a conversation, and I quickly found myself enjoying their company. One of them, a woman named Emily, seemed particularly interesting. She had a warm, genuine smile and a contagious enthusiasm for life. We chatted for a while, and I learned that she was an artist who had moved to the town a few years ago to escape the hustle and bustle of city life. She loved the peace and inspiration that the mountains provided, and it showed in her vibrant, nature-inspired paintings. As the hike continued, Emily and I found ourselves walking together, sharing stories and laughter. There was an easy camaraderie between us, a sense of connection that felt both surprising and natural. By the time we reached the end of the trail, I knew I wanted to see her again. "Would you like to grab a coffee sometime?" I asked, feeling a mix of hope and nervousness. She smiled. "I'd like that." We exchanged numbers and made plans to meet the next day. As I walked back to my bed and breakfast, I felt a sense of excitement and anticipation. Meeting Emily was unexpected, but it felt like a new beginning. The next day, we met at a charming little cafe in town. The conversation flowed easily, and I found myself opening up to her about my past, my journey of healing, and my hopes for the future. She listened with empathy and shared her own experiences, her own stories of growth and change. Over the next few days, we spent more time together, exploring the town, hiking, and enjoying each other's company. There was a lightness and joy in our interactions, a sense of possibility and hope. It was as if meeting Emily had opened a new chapter in my life, one filled with promise and excitement. As the weekend came to an end, I knew I didn't want to lose touch with her. "I've really enjoyed spending time with you," I said as we walked through the town's park. "Would you like to keep in touch? Maybe visit each other?" "I'd love that," she replied, her eyes bright with excitement. "I feel like we've only just begun to get to know each other." We made plans for her to visit my town the following month, and I drove back home feeling a mix of excitement and contentment. Meeting Emily had been unexpected, but it felt right. It felt like a new beginning. Back in my town, I settled back into my routine, but with a newfound sense of hope and anticipation. I continued to focus on my work, my hobbies, and my personal growth. But now there was something, or rather someone, to look forward to. The days flew by, and before I knew it, Emily was visiting. We spent the weekend exploring my town, visiting local attractions, and enjoying each other's company. There was a sense of ease and comfort between us, a connection that felt both deep and effortless. One evening, as we sat by the lake watching the sunset, Emily turned to me, her expression thoughtful. "You've been through so much, John," she said softly. "But you've come out stronger. I admire that." "Thank you," I said, feeling a warmth spread through me. "I couldn't have done it without the support of my friends, and meeting you has been, well, it's been something special." She smiled, taking my hand. "I feel the same way." As we sat there, hand in hand, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I realized that I was ready to embrace this new chapter of my life. The past was behind me, and the future was full of promise. With Emily by my side, I felt a sense of hope and excitement for what lay ahead. Life had thrown me some unexpected twists, but I had come out stronger and more resilient. And now, as I looked into Emily's eyes, I knew that the journey was just beginning. Together, We would explore new horizons, face new challenges, and create new memories. This was just the start of something beautiful. Emily and I continued to grow closer, our bond deepening with each passing day. Her visits became more frequent, and we began talking about the possibility of her moving to my town. It felt like the right step forward for both of us. One sunny afternoon, we were sitting on my balcony sipping coffee and talking about our future. "What do you think about moving here?" I asked, trying to keep my tone casual despite the flutter of nerves in my stomach. Emily smiled, her eyes lighting up. "I've been thinking about it too. I love it here, and being closer to you would be amazing." The decision was made. Over the next few months, we planned her move. Emily found a small art studio in town where she could work and sell her paintings. We also talked about how we'd navigate living together, balancing our personal spaces and shared time. The day Emily moved in was a whirlwind of activity. Friends helped us with the heavy lifting, and by evening, we were sitting among boxes and furniture, exhausted but happy. "This feels surreal," Emily said, leaning against me as we sat on the couch. "But in a good way." I wrapped my arm around her, feeling a sense of contentment. "Yeah, it does. I'm glad you're here." As we settled into our new routine, life felt fuller and more vibrant. We explored the town together, finding new favorite spots and making friends. Emily's art studio quickly became a local favorite, and I loved seeing her thrive in her creative element. One evening, we hosted a small dinner party at our place, inviting Mark and some of our new friends. As we all sat around the table, laughing and sharing stories, I realized how far I had come from the dark days of my past. This was a new chapter, filled with joy and possibility. After everyone left, Emily and I sat on the balcony looking up at the stars. "I never imagined my life would turn out like this," I said, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "It's better than I ever hoped." Emily squeezed my hand. "I feel the same way. I'm so happy we found each other." Life was good, but I knew it wasn't without its challenges. Sarah still occasionally reached out, trying to reconnect. While I had moved on, I knew she was struggling. I tried to be kind but firm, making it clear that we were on different paths now. One afternoon, I received a message from Sarah. "Can we meet? I need to talk." I hesitated, unsure if I wanted to open that door again, but I also felt a sense of compassion for her. We had shared a life once, and she deserved closure just as much as I did. I agreed to meet her at a cafe, the same one where we had our last confrontation. When I arrived, she was already there, looking nervous and unsure. "Hi, John," she said softly as I sat down. "Thank you for meeting me." "What's on your mind, Sarah?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. She took a deep breath, her eyes downcast. "I wanted to apologize for everything. I know I hurt you deeply, and I've been doing a lot of reflecting. I'm trying to be a better person." I nodded, feeling a mix of emotions. "I appreciate that, Sarah. I've moved on, and I'm in a good place now. I hope you find peace, too." She looked up, her eyes filled with sincerity. "I'm really happy for you. I've started seeing a therapist, and I'm working on myself. I just needed to say sorry, and to let you know that I truly wish you the best." "Thank you," I said, feeling a sense of closure. "I wish you the best, too." As I left the cafe, I felt lighter. The past was finally behind me, and I was free to fully embrace the present and the future with Emily. Back home, I told Emily about the meeting. She listened, her eyes full of understanding. "I'm proud of you," she said, hugging me. "It takes a lot of strength to face the past and let go." "I couldn't have done it without you," I replied, feeling grateful for her support. As the days turned into months, Emily and I built a life filled with love, laughter, and creativity. We supported each other's dreams and navigated life's challenges together. One evening, as we were walking by the lake, I turned to her, feeling a surge of emotion. "Emily, I love you. You've brought so much joy into my life, and I can't imagine a future without you." She smiled, her eyes sparkling. "I love you too, John. You've made me happier than I ever thought possible." We stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, watching the sunset. It was a beautiful reminder that even after the darkest storms, the sun would rise again, bringing new light and hope. This was our new beginning, and I couldn't wait to see where our journey would take us. As Emily and I settled into our life together, the days seemed to blend into a beautiful tapestry of shared experiences. We took spontaneous road trips, explored new hobbies, and hosted cozy gatherings with friends. Every moment felt precious, and our bond grew stronger with each passing day. One afternoon, while Emily was at her art studio and I was working from home, I received a call from my lawyer, Janet. She had some news about the finalization of the divorce with Sarah. "John, I just wanted to let you know that everything is finalized. The divorce is officially complete," Janet said, her tone professional but warm. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. "Thank you, Janet. I appreciate all your help through this process." "You're welcome," she replied. "If you need anything else, don't hesitate to reach out." After hanging up, I sat in silence for a moment, letting the reality sink in. The chapter with Sarah was officially closed. It was a bittersweet feeling, but I knew it was a necessary step for both of us to move on. That evening, I shared the news with Emily over dinner. She reached across the table, taking my hand in hers. "How do you feel?" she asked, her eyes filled with concern and love. "Relieved, mostly," I admitted. "It's a strange mix of emotions, but I'm ready to fully embrace our future." Emily smiled, her eyes bright with affection. "I'm glad to hear that. I'm here for you always." Our life continued to flourish. Emily's art studio became a hub of creativity and community, and my work thrived in the supportive environment we had created together. We found joy in the little things, cooking meals together, taking long walks, and simply being in each other's company. One weekend, we decided to take a trip to the mountains, a place we both loved for its tranquility and beauty. We rented a cozy cabin and spent our days hiking and exploring the breathtaking scenery. On the second day, we hiked to a secluded spot overlooking a stunning valley. The view was breathtaking, with the golden hues of the setting sun casting a warm glow over the landscape. As we stood there, taking in the beauty around us, I turned to Emily, feeling a surge of emotion. "Emily, there's something I've been wanting to ask you." She looked at me, her expression curious and loving. "What is it?" I took a deep breath, reaching into my pocket and pulling out a small box. "You've brought so much light into my life, and I can't imagine a future without you. Emily, will you marry me?" Her eyes widened in surprise, and then filled with tears of joy. "Yes, John, I will!" she exclaimed, throwing her arms around me. We stood there, wrapped in each other's embrace, the valley below us and the future ahead of us. It was a perfect moment, a culmination of all the love and growth we had experienced together. Back at the cabin, we celebrated our engagement with a bottle of wine and a cozy fire. We talked about our dreams and plans for the future, feeling a sense of excitement and anticipation for the life we were building together. As we lay in bed that night, Emily snuggled close to me. I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Life had thrown many challenges our way, but we had faced them together and come out stronger. The next few months were a whirlwind of wedding planning and preparations. We decided on a small, intimate ceremony with close friends and family, held in a beautiful garden that reflected our love for nature. On the day of our wedding, the garden was adorned with flowers and twinkling lights. As I stood at the altar waiting for Emily, I felt a mix of nerves and joy. When she appeared, looking radiant in her dress, my heart swelled with love. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. We exchanged vows, promising to support and cherish each other through all of life's ups and downs. As we kissed to seal our vows, I knew we were embarking on a new and beautiful journey together. The reception was filled with laughter, music, and dancing. Mark gave a heartfelt toast, and friends and family shared their well wishes. It was a celebration of love, resilience, and new beginnings. As the evening drew to a close, Emily and I slipped away for a quiet moment under the stars. We held each other close, feeling the warmth of the night and the promise of the future. "This is just the beginning," Emily whispered, her voice filled with emotion. I nodded, kissing her gently. "I know, and I can't wait to see where our journey takes us." Life is unpredictable, filled with twists and turns, but with Emily by my side, I knew we could face anything together. Our love had been tested and had emerged stronger, ready for whatever lay ahead. Together, we embraced the future, ready to build a life filled with love, adventure, and endless possibilities. The days following our wedding were filled with a blissful sense of contentment. Emily and I settled into married life with ease, our bond growing stronger with each passing day. Our love was built on a foundation of trust, resilience, and a shared commitment to making each other happy. One of the first big decisions we made as a married couple was to buy a house. We wanted a place that we could truly call our own, where we could build a future together. After months of searching, we found the perfect home, a charming cottage on the edge of town, surrounded by trees and close to Emily's art studio. Moving in was an adventure in itself. We spent weeks painting, decorating, and making the house our own. It was hard work, but it was also incredibly rewarding. Every room we finished felt like a new chapter in our life together. One weekend, as we were unpacking boxes in the living room, Emily found a box of old photo albums. "Look at these," she said, pulling out an album filled with pictures from my childhood. We spent the afternoon flipping through the albums, sharing stories, and laughing at the old photos. It was a wonderful way to learn more about each other's pasts and to appreciate how far we had come. As we built our new life together, we also made an effort to stay connected to our friends and community. We hosted dinner parties, attended local events, and supported each other's passions. Emily's art studio continued to thrive, and I found new satisfaction in my work, inspired by her creativity and dedication. One evening, we decided to host a barbecue in our backyard, inviting friends and neighbors for a relaxed evening of good food and conversation. Mark, always the life of the party, arrived early to help set up. "This place looks amazing," he said, admiring the house and the garden. "You two have really made it your own." "Thanks, Mark," I said, feeling a sense of pride. "It's been a lot of work, but it's worth it." As the evening progressed, I looked around at our friends gathered in our backyard, laughing and enjoying themselves. It was a beautiful reminder of the support and love that had helped us through the tough times. Later that night, as Emily and I were cleaning up, she turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "I've been thinking," she said. "What do you think about starting a family?" Her question took me by surprise, but in a good way. I had thought about it too, but I hadn't wanted to rush into anything. "I'd love that," I said, pulling her into a hug. "I think we'd make great parents." The idea of starting a family added a new layer of excitement to our lives. We talked about it often, imagining what our future children might be like, and making plans for the nursery and the house. As the months went by, we continued to grow together, supporting each other through life's ups and downs. We faced challenges, but we faced them together, with love and understanding. Our relationship was far from perfect, but it was strong and resilient. One summer evening, as we were sitting on the porch watching the sunset, Emily turned to me with a smile. "I have some news," she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "I'm pregnant." My heart swelled with joy. "Really? That's amazing!" I exclaimed, pulling her into a tight embrace. We spent the rest of the evening talking about our hopes and dreams for our child. It was a moment of pure happiness, a testament to how far we had come and how much we had to look forward to. The months of Emily's pregnancy were a whirlwind of preparations and anticipation. We decorated the nursery, attended prenatal classes, and cherished every moment together. The support of our friends and family was invaluable, making us feel surrounded by love and encouragement. One crisp autumn morning, Emily went into labor. We rushed to the hospital, our hearts pounding with excitement and nerves. The labor was long and intense, but Emily was strong and determined. When our baby girl was finally born, the room filled with a profound sense of awe and love. Holding her for the first time, I felt a surge of emotion unlike anything I had ever experienced. "Welcome to the world, little one," I whispered, tears of joy streaming down my face. Emily looked at our daughter with pure love, her exhaustion replaced by a radiant smile. We named her Grace, a name that reflected the beauty and resilience that had brought us to this moment. Bringing her home felt like the beginning of a new adventure, one filled with love, laughter, and endless possibilities. As we navigated the joys and challenges of parenthood, our bond grew even stronger. Every milestone, every sleepless night, and every precious moment brought us closer together. Our home was filled with laughter and love, and Grace became the heart of our family. Watching her grow and explore the world was a constant reminder of the beauty of life and the strength of our love. Emily continued to thrive in her art, finding inspiration in our daughter and our journey together. I found a renewed sense of purpose in my work and in being a father. One evening, as we sat together in the living room, Grace playing at our feet, Emily turned to me with a contented smile. "We've built something beautiful, haven't we?" I nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. Yes, we have, and it's just the beginning. Life had taken us on a journey filled with unexpected twists and turns, but we had emerged stronger and more connected than ever. With Emily by my side and Grace in our arms, I knew we could face whatever the future held. Together we embraced the adventure of life, ready to create more memories, overcome challenges, and build a future filled with love and joy. Our journey was far from over, and I couldn't wait to see where it would take us next. As the years passed, our life together continued to flourish. Grace grew from a curious toddler into a bright, adventurous little girl, filling our days with laughter and wonder. Emily and I cherished every moment, finding joy in the simple things and strength in each other. One spring afternoon, we decided to take a family trip to the countryside, wanting to give Grace a taste of the adventures we loved so much. We packed a picnic and headed to a beautiful meadow surrounded by rolling hills and wildflowers. Grace ran ahead, her laughter echoing through the fields. Emily and I followed, hand in hand, feeling a deep sense of contentment. We found a perfect spot under a big oak tree and spread out our picnic blanket. The day was warm and sunny, the sky a brilliant blue. As we enjoyed our lunch, Grace's curiosity got the best of her. She wandered off to explore the wildflowers, picking a few to bring back to us. Emily and I watched her with smiles, marveling at the beauty and innocence of our daughter. After lunch, we lay back on the blanket, gazing up at the clouds. Grace climbed onto my chest, her little hands pointing at the sky. "Look, Daddy, that one looks like a dragon," I chuckled, squinting at the cloud she was pointing to. "You're right, it does. And that one looks like a castle." Emily joined in, pointing out shapes and telling stories about them. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated joy, the kind that makes you appreciate the simple beauty of life. As the sun began to set, we packed up our picnic and headed back home. Grace fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from the day's adventures. Emily rested her head on my shoulder, her hand intertwined with mine. "Today was perfect," she whispered, her voice filled with contentment. I kissed her forehead, feeling a profound sense of love and gratitude. Every day with you and Grace is perfect. Life continued to move forward, each day bringing new challenges and new joys. Emily's art continued to thrive, and I found fulfillment in my work and in being a father. Our home was filled with love, laughter, and the beautiful chaos that comes with raising a child. One evening, as we were putting Grace to bed, she looked up at us with her big, bright eyes. "Mommy, Daddy, can we go on another adventure tomorrow?" Emily and I exchanged a smile. "Of course, sweetheart," Emily said, tucking her in. "Every day is an adventure with you." As we left Grace's room and headed downstairs, I wrapped my arm around Emily's waist. "We've done good, haven't we?" I said, looking at her with love and admiration. She smiled, leaning into me. "Yes, we have, and there's so much more to come." Our journey was filled with ups and downs, but through it all, our love remained strong and unwavering. We faced life's challenges together, always finding a way to grow and support each other. As the years turned into decades, we watched Grace grow into a remarkable young woman. She inherited Emily's creativity and my determination, carving her own path in the world. Watching her succeed and find happiness brought us immense pride and joy. Emily and I grew older, our hair turning gray and our faces lined with the marks of time. But our love never faded. It only deepened, enriched by the countless memories we had created together. One quiet evening, We sat on our porch, watching the sun set over the horizon. Grace had gone off to college, and it was just the two of us again, just as it had been in the beginning. Emily turned to me, her eyes sparkling with the same love that had drawn me to her all those years ago. "Do you remember our first trip to the mountains?" she asked, her voice soft and nostalgic. I smiled, taking her hand in mine. How could I forget? That was the beginning of everything. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and we sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn shades of pink and orange. "We've had a beautiful life, haven't we?" she said after a while. "Yes, we have," I agreed, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "And it's not over yet. There are still more adventures to come." As the sun dipped below the horizon, we held each other close, ready to face whatever the future held. Our love had weathered every storm, growing stronger with each passing year. We knew that as long as we had each other, we could face anything. Together, we embraced the journey of life, grateful for the love that had brought us together and the memories that would last a lifetime. And as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, we knew that our story was far from over. It was just beginning, a testament to the enduring power of love and the endless possibilities of the future.